Can I now start the meeting by welcoming everybody? We have had apologies from Councillor Hunt, and Councillor Ottino is substituting. Yeah, and I understand also that Councillor Regisford is going to be late. Okay. So moving on to item 2, declarations of interest. Councillor Henwood, Councillor Railton and Councillor Raymond.
In that order, Chair. So I was one of the councillors that called in an application this evening. I would like to declare that I have an open mind and I come to this meeting with no bias, and I'll be judging the application on its full merits.
Thank you. Councillor
For the first item, I've bizarrely met both of the bursars at Exeter College. Babris, the domestic bursar I met in May for a trip up the Exeter College Chapel spire. Why not? And this was mentioned, but I did not in passing. This application was mentioned in passing, but I did not offer an opinion at the time. And on Saturday, I met Nicholas Badman, who's over there, at the Exeter College exhibition on the ExocQ, new thing up in North Oxford. And we agreed that it would be a very bad idea to discuss this application. So yeah, I'm here with an open mind. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Raymond.
Item number 5, it's an application that I put in myself, and I called in item number 6, which I'll be speaking to. So
Right. Anybody else? I've also got to declare interest. First of all, in item on Hertford and Exeter College, I have been quite involved in talking to the bursars of both colleges. It's in my wards, and I've been quite involved on and off for a number of years. And I feel, therefore, that I can't come to this with a completely open mind. So I will be handing over to Councillor Fairweather, the Deputy Chair, to chair that. And finally, on the last item, like Councillor Raymond, I too have got personal application in, and I will be leaving the meeting before then. Okay. Finally, before I hand over to Councillor Fairweather, can we just go through the minutes of the last meeting? Got those in front of you. Meeting held on the 7th of October. Page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. And page 6. If I don't see any comments or dissent, so I will sign those as a true record. And I'll now hand over to Councillor Fairweather. Thank you.
Yes, as Councillor Clarkson said, I will be chairing this part of the meeting. So I'll call on Nia George as the planning officer concerned to introduce the officer's report.
Right, so this is an application seeking planning permission to regenerate a Hertford and Exeter College sports grounds to provide a wider range of indoor and outdoor sports facilities through upgrading the existing sports pitches and buildings and the introduction of additional facilities on the site. So Sorry, there's a bit of a lag on my laptop. So this is the existing location plan. So the site comprises both the Hertford College Sports Ground with its pavilion and squash courts, as well as Exeter College Sports Ground with its own pavilion and sports courts, squash courts too. So the sports grounds are accessed via Edgware Road to the south of the site, and there's an existing car park located next to Exeter College Pavilion and squash courts at the south. There is a pedestrian entrance from the east of the site next to Hertford Pavilion, which is accessed via a public footpath and cycleway, which runs into the city centre. To the north of the site lies Croft Road Playground, as well as residential dwellings on Fairfax Avenue. To the east lie residential dwellings on Purcell Road. To the south, Park Farm and undeveloped fields known as the New Marsden Meadows. And to the west lies St Catherine's College Sports Ground. So the Peasmore Brook runs between the sports grounds, and the site lies within flood zones 1, 2, 3A and 3B. Sports grounds lie within the green belt, as well as the Elsfield View Cone, within the setting of the Central Conservation Area, as well as the setting of the New Marsden Meadows, which are a SSSI and local heritage asset. And the existing pavilions and squash court buildings on the site are also considered as local heritage assets. So this is a view from Edgware Road looking to the west towards the vehicle access road to the sports ground, the public footpath and cycle track which run along the eastern boundary of the site is also seen at this junction running left to right. This is a view of the access road looking east back towards Edgware Road and dwellings on Ferry Road to the south. This is a view from the access road looking northwest, where straight ahead there are the Exeter College Pavilion and squash court with the vehicle access gates in front. This is a closer view of the same pavilion and squash courts from within the site at the car park looking northwest. And this is a view from the same car park looking east with the dwelling of Park Farm backing onto this. This is a view looking across Exeter Sports Grounds with dwellings seen in the distance to the north on Fairfax Avenue. This is a view at the south of the site where there's a bridge over the Peasmore Brook linking the two sports grounds together. In front is the Hertford Squash Courts building. And this is a view just beyond the bridge looking southeast where the Hertford Pavilion is seen in the distance to the left and Park Farm bounding the south of the site. This is looking north next to Hertford Squash Courts where fencing surrounds existing tennis courts. And this is another view of the Squash Courts building. This is a view of the same spot looking across the sports grounds with the pavilion on the right-hand side and dwellings of Purcell Road in the background. So this is a view to the west of the site from St Catherine's College Sports Ground looking east with the sports grounds and the pavilion and squash courts. And this is another view from the same spot but looking further northeast with the sports grounds to the right. This is a view from the northeast of the site looking south showing the footpath and cycle track which runs along the east boundary with Hertford Sports Grounds to the right. This is another view from the southeast of the site showing the Hertford Pavilion from the pedestrian access. And another view of the pavilion further up the footpath and showing the context with the sports grounds. And another one showing a wider view. And another one. And this one's looking north, backing onto the Croft Playground. And these are views looking from the playground directly south, so you can see the Hertford Pavilion on the left, and you can just about make out the squash courts on the right. This is another view from the playground looking further west. And another one looking further west where you can see the Exeter Pavilion on the left-hand side. So now coming to the proposed floor plans for the Hertford squash courts. So the building is proposed to be refurbished with the squash courts being removed and replaced with a cafe, changing facilities, sports hub reception area and community space. And these are the elevations for the same building, with the only new additions being new access steps and ramps proposed outside. These are the proposed floor plans and elevations for the Hertford Pavilion, which is to be refurbished with no alterations proposed to the internal layout nor the use of the building. Ramps and steps are proposed, as well as existing fenestration restored. These are the proposed floor plans and elevations for the Exeter squash courts. It's proposed to refurbish the building with the squash courts removed and replaced with a golf simulator. Steps and a ramp are proposed, additional louvers and alterations are proposed to the fenestration. These are the proposed floor plans and elevations for the Exeter Pavilion. The building is proposed to be refurbished with no alterations proposed to the internal layout and use of the building, other than the existing storage rooms being used for ground staff. Again, ramps and steps are proposed and the existing fenestration would be restored. These are the proposed plans and elevations of the paddle enclosure. It would approximately measure 59.2 metres in length, 25.4 metres in width, and would have a curved roof with a maximum height of approximately 10.5 metres. The walls and roof of the enclosure would be clad in green polycarbonate sheets. And this is the proposed block plan for the site overall. So you have the Exeter Sports Grounds to the left, Hertford to the right. So you can see the siting of the paddle enclosure here. And then to the external paddle courts are over here to the left. And there would be lighting surrounding the outdoor courts, and the enclosure would be internally illuminated as well. So to the west of the Exeter Pavilion and squash courts down here, there are new cricket nets and all-weather courts for netball, football, basketball. And again, these would be surrounded by security fencing with external lighting. On the rest of the sports grounds, you can see the cricket squares and the football pitches, which have been reconfigured. New footbaths are proposed to the east and south of the site along the boundaries here and here. And there would be additional lighting to light the footpaths as well. The car park at the south of the site would be formalised with parking bays, and additional trees and landscaping enhancements are proposed around the site, including a new infiltration basin just next to the paddle enclosure, and bin and bicycle storage is also proposed down here next to the car park as well. So these are some accurate visual representations of the proposal. In the top left, this is a view from the Croft Road playground to the north of the site, looking south in the summer. And you can see the paddle enclosure between the two trees on the left. The top right is the same view in the summer at night, where you can see the illumination of the paddle enclosure and the external lighting from the outdoor courts. Bottom left is another image from the playground taken further west, still looking south in the summer. This shows the paddle enclosure again in the context of the squash courts building here. And the bottom right is the same view at night, showing the illumination from the paddle enclosure and again the lighting on the outdoor courts. So these are some more visuals. At the top, you've got a view from the footpath and cycle track to the east of the site, looking west, where again you see the paddle enclosure and its surrounding fencing and landscaping. On the bottom is a view from St Catherine's College sports grounds to the west, looking east across the sports grounds in the winter. And you can see the paddle enclosure behind the trees here, and the outdoor courts with fencing around here. And in the middle is the same view at night in the summer, where you can see to the left the paddle enclosure here with the external lighting to the outdoor courts here. And lastly, we have some more visuals from the Ellsfield view cone. So at the top is the summer proposed view, and below is just the same view but zoomed in more so you can see the city centre spires rising above the trees. The paddle enclosure would be located here. And underneath, we've got the view at night, and I've again done a zoomed in version at the bottom, and I'm pointing out the paddle enclosure there. So subject to conditions, the development would be considered acceptable in relation to highway safety and parking, biodiversity, trees and landscaping, health, wellbeing, safety, air quality, land quality and utilities. However, the proposed paddle enclosure would fail to preserve the openness of the green belt and would amount to inappropriate development. The proposed car park, golf simulator and hall in the Exeter Pavilion are not deemed water compatible under Annex 3 of the NPPF, and therefore these uses are incompatible with their location within Flood Zone 3B. The proposed paddle enclosure fails to comply with the sequential test. The flood risk assessment fails to consider how people will be kept safe from the identified flood hazards, and it also fails to take into account the impacts of climate change. In addition, the drainage strategy is insufficient for officers to be able to establish if this is acceptable. The paddle enclosure and the proposed lighting and fencing structures would detract from the setting of the existing building group on the site and their significance as local heritage assets, removing the remote and peaceful character of the sports fields, the surrounding green spine and neighbouring local heritage asset known as the New Marsden Meadows. In addition, insufficient information has been submitted with the application to establish the significance of the archaeological heritage assets at this site. The acoustic assessment fails to consider the potential impact of the proposed air source heat pump in relation to noise, and the energy statement also fails to provide sufficient evidence to justify why the paddle enclosure would be exempt from Part L building regs. So having assessed all material planning considerations, it's concluded overall that the development's unacceptable and the proposals are contrary to policies DH1, DH4, DH5, G1, G3, RE2, RE3, RE4 of the Oxford Local Plan, chapters 13, 14 and 16 of the NPPF, and the Flood Risk and Coastal Change Planning Practice Guidance.
Thank you. I'd now like to invite Jennifer Edis, who's the speaker against the application, to take a seat. You have 5 minutes, and if you could turn your microphone on by pressing the right-hand button.
Okay, thank you. So the committee report sets out substantial reasons to refuse this application. And as a local resident, I support these objections. So we're not double down and dwell on them, including the greenbelt development, flooding and drainage risk, heritage preservation and noise. However, there are several impacts that I do not believe give sufficient weight in the report. In particular, these would cover parking saturation and its uneven impact on certain streets, the associated increase in traffic on small residential roads and the main cycle route, and the level of noise and lighting from late operating commercial sports facility. So looking at parking first, the application firmly puts the parking provision onto the neighbouring residential streets and is somewhat naive in its estimations, seemingly ignoring some of the travel and parking needs of visiting away teams and those who will originate their journeys from outside the city. The report rightly highlights the residents' parking is likely to approach, if not reach, saturation levels, but it does not reflect how this will be experienced on the ground. Parking closest to the facility, so along Purcell Road and at the ends of Edgway and Ferry Road, will be in almost constant use, making it effectively impossible for residents in this area to park near their homes. We are already seeing this with the recent increase in the use of the playing fields. On Wednesday afternoons and at weekends, the parking at this end of the street is already at full capacity, and residents are having to park a considerable way away from their homes. The proposal also talks about hosting tournaments and competitions, which would only intensify this problem. Only this week, in fact, a full-size 58-seater coach was parked on Edgway Road between the end of Purcell and the cycle path, covering residential spaces, double yellow lines, and completely blocking all visibility with the junction of the cycle path. Whilst I appreciate the report mentions the need to review parking, in reality, the only effective mitigation would be to make these streets resident only at all times. Anything less would not alleviate the impact that this facility would have on residents' day-to-day lives. Based on the increase already in use and in place, this is something that I believe should be actioned regardless of the outcome of this decision. Secondly, on traffic, the report does not, in my view, give adequate consideration to the significant increase in traffic that naturally follows from parking saturation and a busy commercial venue. This is surprising and appears to conflict with the council's wider policies aimed at reducing traffic on city and residential roads, with schemes including LTNs and the congestion charge. Channeling a large volume of additional vehicles, including coaches, into a small number of dead-end residential streets that also serve as access to one of our major cycleways is unsafe, and I would argue incompatible with the wider transport and environmental policies of this council. Finally, looking at noise and lighting, I'm very concerned at the conclusion that ambient noise level will reduce following the construction of a large-scale commercial sports facility operating from early in the morning till late at night. Even in their current use for football and cricket, the playing fields generate noise, and that can be clearly heard from inside the local properties, including quite a lot of the choice language by the players and spectators during some of the more feisty fixtures. The proposal adds outdoor hard courts for basketball and netball, plus a significant number of outdoor paddle courts. These are not quiet sports. Paddle in particular is known to generate sharp impact noise from the ball strikes and continuous player noise. There are many documented examples elsewhere of planning applications for paddle courts being refused, restricted, or subsequently challenged because of noise impacts on neighbouring properties. Extending this noise late into the evening alongside high-level flood lighting would fundamentally change the character of this residential area and the experience of the people living closest to the site. As someone who is very actively involved in grassroots sports, I fully appreciate the value that opening up the use of existing playing fields could have for our community. With appropriate resident-only parking in place, optimising the use of existing football and cricket pitches would be an excellent plan and one that many other local colleges would do well to copy. However, I recognise that this kind of community-focused approach may be a little less attractive options to colleges may be looking at something that offers slightly more revenue. In summary, I believe this application would cause unacceptable harm through loss of green belt, parking saturation, increased traffic on unsuitable roads and intrusive noise and lighting, all within a quiet residential neighbourhood. Given the availability of less damaging ways to improve sports provision on this site, I respectfully urge the committee to refuse this application. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Colin? Could I ask the four people who've registered to speak for the application? And could I remind you that you have 5 minutes between you? So I don't know whether one of you is going to speak for a shorter amount of time or not.
Yes, we've agreed the split.
Thank you. Please begin. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jamie Clark. I'm bursar of Hertford College. The proposal before you tonight provides a carefully thought out solution to many years of vandalism and associated antisocial behaviour at our sports grounds that has left multiple buildings derelict and facilities unusable. It does reflect college ambition, but also local aspirations. And to address directly some of the concerns given as refusal reasons for the application, we do not agree that the development fails to preserve the openness of the Greenbelt. This is an expansion of current use, not a new incursion into undeveloped land. As will be obvious from the before and after views made available as part of the application, It is simply wrong to suggest these are impacted in any significant way. And we notice that one of the views shown tonight is a zoomed in version, and we therefore contend unrealistic as a representation of that view. We have fully responded to flood risk matters. We know the site floods occasionally, and the proposal is designed to cope with that. We accept this, and it isn't a problem. Expert advice suggests the approach requested by the Environment Agency on drainage will not work in this location. We believe our own proposals are entirely satisfactory. The report asserts that any harm is not outweighed by the benefits. We disagree and submit that officers have significantly underestimated the many public benefits that will be delivered, perhaps due to a belief that they could be provided without the paddle canopy. This is not the case. A popular, inclusive indoor sport is required to generate income to support the investment and, crucially, is the best way to ensure regular use and deter antisocial behaviour. Without such a centrepiece facility, we will not be able to justify the significant investment required, and no part of this development will be able to proceed. Archaeology, energy and noise matters can be addressed, we believe, through planning conditions.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. I'm Nick Badman, Bursar of Exeter College. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity for Marston with real benefits for residents. In their own words, the site is unused with vandalised buildings. It will bring new sports facilities to the area, which can impact well-being and mental health. Paddle will appeal to multiple generations. The proposal will hopefully eradicate antisocial behaviour and become a new hub for the community. Cafe facilities and community room will encourage more people. Social facilities are severely lacking in Marston. The additional footpath is welcomed. Lighting along the footpath is much needed, which is currently dark and dangerous at night. The proposed footpath will relieve pedestrian traffic. Disadvantaged children from East Oxford will otherwise miss out. Please do not forego these tangible, long-lasting benefits for residents. We have already invested significantly in this project. Whilst we can accept reasonable conditions to resolve technical matters, as you've heard, we cannot accept the loss of paddle. The outcome of this evening's decision will be final for us, the colleges. We cannot make further investment without certainty of outcome. We are asking you here tonight to reconsider the net benefit analysis on the assumption, as you've heard and as we've made clear all along, that paddle is necessary, and we will ask you to make a final determination tonight. We are disappointed in the fake news photographs tonight that have been provided. We've got the ones from the actual planning application, and you might want to play a little game of Where's Wally to see if you can really spot our paddle building.
Charles Parrott, local resident and member of the New Marston South Residents Association. Residents' views are mixed on this, but I'm here to speak on the Hertford and Exeter colleges' ability to talk to residents. They've included residents and had many meetings with residents throughout the process, which we welcome, and we welcome continued conversation on this. We share strongly the desire to reduce antisocial behaviour and bring the beautiful pavilions back to life while recognising the special natural surroundings. Thank you. The infrastructure improvements are especially welcome, most notably the improvements to the dangerous but well-used cycle path. We don't want to see the site fall into further disrepair, but would of course need, if you choose to accept this, we would welcome and think need to have a discussion about conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. If you could just turn the microphone off. If the applicants could remain in case there are questions from the committee that you would be able to answer. Okay, could I invite questions from the committee? Councillor Kerr.
It says here that the golf simulator and hall in the Exeter Pavilion are not deemed water compatible. I can see why the car park isn't. Can you explain why the golf simulator and hall aren't, given they're on the same existing sites?
Yes, so when we look at water compatible uses, the MPPF has an annex which contains a list of what's deemed low risk. What I can't think of the word now. More vulnerable uses. So it sets out quite clearly what those uses are, and essentially the car park, the golf simulator and the hall don't fit within those. So a lot of the proposals can constitute of outdoor sports facilities and recreation facilities, but we consider that those specific uses fall outside of those definitions and therefore are incompatible.
Understood, but they're in an existing indoor sports, so it's the delta that I don't understand. If they're an existing type of indoor sports facility that's happening in an existing indoor sports facility, right? That's what I looked it up. I just don't understand how, because it's not changing the use. It's still indoor sports in an indoor sports space. Am I not correct about that? So that's why I couldn't understand when I looked it up. Yeah.
Yes, so even though the use of the building in planning terms is not changing in terms of use class, when we're looking at assessing it in terms of flood risk, we have to consider the new uses that are being proposed in terms of actually how it's being used.
I don't think I fully understand that. So it's being because there's more people using it, or because it's being used for the same class of thing, and now we're saying that that just doesn't seem to logically make sense from what I can see from the MPPF. But it's a very small point in the overall application, so maybe we just leave it. But it's being used for indoor sports right now. It's going to be used for indoor sports. There's no change of classification. Why does that? Again, I can understand the car park point. I just can't understand why suddenly an indoor golf simulator is a problem where using it as an indoor pavilion is not. But Felicity, sorry, you may.
I was going to sort of try and explain with a different sort of example whereby if you had something under a use class E within within an area that floods, that could also change the use to a nursery, because it's going from being used as an office or a warehouse to a more vulnerable use, which is the use as a nursery, then we have to consider that. So it's a more vulnerable use. So according to the annex, the use of the building, which is used as for a sports facility, the actual use as for the golf simulator is more vulnerable in our view to currently used as a squash court.
Councillor Upton.
I do want to ask a question, but I haven't got my hand up yet. I think.
Yeah, so on a similar point, so what are leisure facilities classified as under the sort of various flood zone things? Because I mean, to my mind, you know, if those two playing fields are flooded, who is going there to play tennis? Do you know what I mean? You just don't go. This is not like flooding residential properties. You just don't go. So I genuinely don't really get where this is coming from, I guess. Sort of, yeah, slightly on Emily's point.
Chair, just to say the report sets out an explanation as to this. I mean, which specific part in the report has not been either read or understood? Just to clarify,
so I guess,
the report's got a full section on flooding, which talks about the vulnerable uses, explains this. So the bit I'm confused at is the questions are being asked, obviously are answered in the report.
Okay.
Presumably the reports have been read, just the point I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, I mean, my question was, I put it against 4.4, but it would have come down later as well, because that was a summary one. But yeah, I genuinely don't understand who will be playing tennis when the things are flooded, so.
Councillor Upton.
Thanks. So there's a lot of things that they haven't complied with, like no acoustic statement, no archaeology statement, drainage strategy insufficient. I'm just thinking, are these things that we could address with conditions? I.e. they couldn't start it until you had that information? Or is that too much to go into conditions? Would we have to just refuse it because it's they haven't given us that information.
Yes, so we've considered all of the, you will see throughout the report that there's a lot of information which we think should have come forward, but we have said, had the overriding reasons for refusal not applied, we would have sought that via condition. But the ones which have the issues that have been raised in refusal reasons, we deem that they can't be done by condition. So, for example, the noise impact assessment, because it doesn't include the air source heat pumps, if we approve air source heat pumps in principle, but we don't actually know if the noise would be acceptable or whether we can mitigate the noise, then we're never, we can't condition it because we're never going to be satisfied that policy RE8 would be acceptable. Again, with the energy statement problem, we need to be satisfied that, for example, if a building control inspector doesn't believe that the building is exempt from Part L building regs, then the development would need to meet the 40% carbon reduction targets, which are stipulated in policy RE1. So if we were to leave that to condition, again, we can't be certain that the paddle enclosure, which is a new building on the site, would generate the loss of the carbon reduction required. So yeah, we have considered all of the technical elements.
Thank you. Councillor Raymond.
Yeah, I have a question for the applicants, if I may. So we just had a sort of list of impact assessments and reports that you've not been forthcoming with, from what we can see. Is there any particular reason, especially around about you disagree with the Environment Agency and you have your own specialists? So the two questions is, who do you think knows more about the environment than the Environment Agency? And secondly, why have you not been forthcoming with the reports? Is there any particular reason? Thanks.
So just in relation to reports, the application was supported by a full suite of reports, which included noise, energy and others, a significant quantum of reports, in fact. The detail of those reports, we can go into each one individually, but in terms of the comment in relation to the energy statement, the building inspector would need to clarify that it's exempt from Part L. That is entirely splitting hairs in our view. That is not necessary as a requirement for a determination positively of this planning application. In relation to noise, we are not at the stage yet to be able to specify plant, and therefore we haven't got, whilst we propose air source heat pumps, we would then anticipate a condition that would require us to split specification and confirm noise impacts as associated with that. So again, in our view, we can overcome those points. In relation to the earlier question about compatibility of uses, which relates to the query about Environment Agency, from the outset of this project with my clients, we had a conversation about compatibility of uses. Now, we are fully aware that the site floods. The applicants deal with that on a yearly basis at the time that in the occurrences there are. In terms of the Environment Agency's position, they have maintained a very stringent, very immovable position. Our advice to them has been that this site is an existing use, that we are looking to enhance that use appropriately, and that we understand that there will be impacts on flooding, and we will manage that. We will put forward, by condition again, a bespoke management plan that ensures the safety of anybody using the site. In fact, it will simply be closed, in times of flood. It's just the way it's always been run. So we're working here within a set of very stringent, immovable criteria that we feel are not appropriate and not applicable to our site. We've put forward extensive information detailing why we can't comply with certain requirements the Environment Agency are looking for. Unfortunately, we are met with a blanket application of guidance and no creative thinking about the outcomes, and that's what we were hoping to achieve through this application. I think that's answered your questions, but if I've missed anything, please do let me know.
Thank you.
Just to clarify on the Environment Agency, I mean, the point about being met with immovable objects, the Environment Agency review, many applications in this city on sites of flood risk of various grades. And the committee here would have been to had many applications come before it where the Environment Agency have objected to applications and they've been overcome through the technical response. So it isn't necessary that the Environment Agency, they are a statutory consultee and whose weight, you need to attach significant weight to in the determination of the application. They've obviously evidenced why they consider that the application should, or they object to the application. The fact that they've not been able to come to a resolution is obviously something that could be, addressed further at a later date. But the fact of the matter is that over a period of time, the Environment Agency have maintained their objection, so they haven't been able to overcome it. I think suggesting that they've got some form of intransigent position or they're being overly strict or overly zealous in their response is slightly unfair.
Councillor Upton.
So for me, one of the problems with this is going to be the amount of sort of light pollution potentially in a very green, a very rural looking area, which I cycle past every day. So I'm just wondering how this can be minimised. The security fencing that was going to go around, I think it's going to go around the netball, basketball. So you're going to have lights on the outside. Is that necessary? Could we condition that those were either don't need to be there, or I guess you could have covers on them so no lighting goes up, it's sort of minimised. But is that necessary? And then the other big thing obviously is going to be the covered paddle courts. They're going to be coated with green poly something or other. How translucent is that, or will that actually contain the light? Will there be a lot of light pollution coming from the covered paddle courts? My questions, thanks.
Yeah, so the external lighting is proposed to the paddle courts as well as the all-weather courts for netball, basketball, football. The applicants want to be able to ensure that the site is used in the evenings to all year round. So that's why, lighting is proposed. Conditions could be proposed to limit timing, but in the winter months especially, the lighting, the restrictions would be so far that they wouldn't be able to be used much at all. And in terms of the paddle enclosure and the lighting which would be emitted, I think this visual probably shows so the translucent nature of the material would emit some light. So yeah, you can see it in these two images there and there.
That doesn't look very bright. Is that? I guess this is all subjective, but what are the? So is that meant to be the moon there, sort of as a reference point? The moon is that bright?
That large bright light at the bottom
thing,
right.
Yes. Is that the moon?
What's that?
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, so you obviously it's not you're commenting that it's not too bright. Obviously, we've said from a amenity point of view that we're happy that the light emitted wouldn't harm any neighbouring occupiers. However, we consider that the light would be detrimental upon the setting of the local heritage assets, which are the existing buildings on the site, and they're in close proximity. If I go back to the proposed block plan, you'll see the scale of the paddle enclosure here in this rectangle and the proximity to the local heritage assets, which are the existing buildings in grey, so that we consider that the scale of the building due to the and the translucent nature of the material as well, and the light emitted would detract from those.
Councillor Henwood.
Thank you, Chair. In past planning committees, we used to have a thing called previous planning applications that were quite similar in context. And I'm just wondering if there is a precedent that might fit this one. I'm thinking along the lines of Armstrong Road and the playing fields there, or the Oxford United training ground that were also built on partial green belt. Is there a precedent in place where leisure facilities have been developed on green belt space or on flood zones?
Sorry, Jed, I understand previous committees, we've had details of previous applications.
Is there a precedent?
Well, there's no such thing in planning as a precedent. Obviously, each site's taken on its own merits. The Armstrong Road site was a redundant used cricket ground, which was then re-provided. And the site at Oxford United site, the Horsepath Sports Pitch, is that the one that you're talking about? That's not. There's only a very small part of the site that's the site's in the green belt, but the pitches are in the green belt. The built form of development is outside the green belt.
Councillor Otina.
This is for the applicants, as I'm thinking there's an objection about whether you actually own the land somewhere. Why haven't you given officers that accurate information to sort of make them feel more confident about that?
Chair, I'm happy to answer that one if that's useful. So the application has a red line plan associated with it. I believe you're referring to the riparian zone, which sits alongside the brook. That land is within the client's ownership, and therefore we didn't feel we needed to clarify it, but we weren't aware that that was going to be part of the objection until the last minute. Yeah.
Any further questions?
Actually, sorry, yeah, I do. Sorry, I do. Apologies if I've missed this in the report. I just wanted to clarify that your proposal is it involves playing until 11 p.m. Is that correct? Because that's a couple of the objections have come through based on the timing, and I just couldn't find reference to that.
Okay. So perhaps I can answer. I don't think we've specified. I think it is very helpful to the proposal to have play going on into the evenings because of trying to get rid of the antisocial behaviour. We haven't specified. So if you wanted to say, I mean, I think 11 sounds quite late actually.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a paddle player myself, but my friends of mine who play paddle, they go along after work and play paddle. I mean, they'd be gone by 9:30. I would have thought 10 o'clock. I mean, if you were concerned to limit it in that sense, that would be absolutely fine. If I could just go back to an earlier question about these Environment Agency people. Just to give you an illustration, we have engineering advice and we're not entirely silly ourselves, I would hope. But one of the things the Environment Agency wanted us to do and wouldn't accept our engineers' advice on is to put into the ground an impermeable membrane against a flood. And our engineers, funnily enough, said, well, actually, that's just not going to work because the flood will flood. It comes up every year and it floods and it will push your impermeable membrane out of the ground and it'll need repairing. And unfortunately, our governing bodies are not prepared to countenance a project that's going to just not work and require serious repairs every year. So I'm just trying to give you an illustration of what we're up against here. So I apologize if I'm going back to a previous question, but I really do feel that what we're after tonight, if you can, is an outbreak of kind of common sense, because there's such a lot of good here.
Thank you. Any more questions from the committee?
Same question for officers. Do they now accept this ownership of a land issue, or is there any additional information they've had that means they don't object to that anymore?
Sorry, is this on the drainage point?
Talks about insufficient detail to determine
Yeah, yes.
Fails to
that
confirm
one.
the applicant is the riparian owner of the land.
Yes, so obviously that would have been, that's a smaller issue, I suppose, in the terms of the wider drainage issue that we've got with the site. So, that wasn't the only issue that we've got with the drainage. Obviously, our internal officers, as well as the lead local flood authority, have objected on drainage grounds. So that was a mere technicality which we could have dealt with further down the line, but I think it's the actual design of the drainage which is a key issue here.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Sorry, I have a question for officers. Are you proposing then to remove that bit from the reason for refusal in relation to the ownership, riparian owner details? Because that's in the published reason for refusal. So are we saying that that's going to be removed from the?
Yeah, we'd be happy to remove that.
Thank you. Okay, if there are no further questions from the committee, then Councillor Lupton.
I'm just reading 12.7 again about the NPPF stating that existing open space, sports and recreational buildings and land, including playing fields and formal play spaces, should not be built on unless. And I'm thinking this, so okay, do the hard courts count as building on? Yes and no, and then do the covered, I guess the covered paddle courts count as building? We would say they're counting as building, but I think maybe the applicants are saying they don't, and that's why they don't have to comply with our. Yeah, sorry, just if you could answer that while I'm thinking about that paragraph.
Sorry, so just to check, which concern is this to do with drainage or
just building? Just paragraph 104 of the NPPF says we shouldn't be building on open playing fields unless there's some ABC reasons there why we might think it's okay.
So I'm to find that response, but in terms of the green belt, we've assessed that the green belt does allow you to build within the you can build within the green belt, but subject to there are some exemptions and justifications that need to be made. So we as officers feel satisfied that the even though there's impermeable surfacing and built form being proposed in terms of the outdoor courts, they would retain the open sense and nature of the site, but it's the paddle court, due to it being an internal enclosed building and the scale of it, which we consider to be inappropriate in relation to the green belt.
Thank you. If you would like to return to your seat. Okay, we now proceed to comments and debate about this application. I see Councillor Railton.
So I am minded to approve this application because I am genuinely just not convinced that with the sort of balance of harms thing here on any of the points. So, we've talked a bit about the flooding. It's already leisure use. It's going to remain leisure use. It's not ever going to be anything apart from leisure use. And I'm, very convinced of the safety of people using this when it's flooded because they will not be there. When it comes to harm to the Greenbelt, I think Greenbelt should be working for the people of Oxford. This is improving the leisure amenity of this site. in the Greenbelt for, not just members of a college, but for the wider community as well. And I think that should be given more credit than it is. When it comes to the setting of the existing building group, I mean, this existing building group, some of them are literally boarded up, some of them are vandalized. We've heard about the antisocial behaviour. It'd be quite good to improve the setting of the historic buildings by improving the historic buildings, in my opinion. When it comes to the New Marston, setting of the New Marston Meadows, this is still going to remain a very open site. And I feel like the setting of New Marston Meadows, the ship slightly sailed when Marston got built next to it, to be honest. This is not a planning concern, but, a lot of the colleges in this city get quite a lot of stick for the amount of green space that they have enclosed and not open to the public, and this is a move away from that I think should be given more merit than it is in response to this planning application. So yeah, I am minded to approve this.
Councillor Kerr.
I concur with Councillor Elton on many of her comments. I emphasise that, saying that we shouldn't put light near some local heritage assets in the dark because it causes damage to them when you look at the shape that they're currently in, isn't necessarily a good reason to reject. I have been through the report. I still maintain that a golf simulator and a hall are not any less water compatible than the current use of the existing sites. And I don't think that is a great reason either. I think the openness of the Greenbelt point, is not valid either when you look at the photos or just the idea that we can't have kids using facilities for sports because somebody walking at some distance might see something green, that's a view cone issue, which I know is a statutory thing, but nevertheless, I agree with the residents about the issues with parking. Unfortunately, that is a county matter, and the county has not objected to this. It seems extremely obvious that residents' parking should be extended. There should be some kind of amelioration, but the plan submits a proposal for additional cycle parking and improved access. So, that's what's within the sort of gift of the City Council. I think it is presumably, I would imagine that we could have some conditions, and I would probably recommend that. An archaeological field, evaluation has not been submitted. That looks like something that needs to be submitted. And yeah, I would recommend discussions with officers, or as far as we can put constraints on this, to limit the time that these can be used in the evening to something that is comparable with other similar, facilities. Clearly 11 p.m. is too late, bearing in mind that often pubs are limited, in areas. But other than that, I'm minded to agree with Councillor Elton.
Thank you. Councillor Riemann.
Thank you, Chair. I think I don't think anyone doubts that this would be a welcome addition. However, some of the conditions that some of the points can be atoned by a condition like parking and the time that the fuel's in there. But I really think it's really important that we shouldn't set a precedent of ignoring a statutory body like the Environment Agency, and I think the onus should be on the applicant to satisfy the statutory bodies. Going from that, and then I have a concern. I know we're talking about the heritage assets next door, they're vandalised and stuff like that, but that's the case of where we've had many complaints before of land banking. People have, I'm not saying that it's happened in this case, but buildings, places, land has been left derelict, and then somebody comes up and says, oh, this area, look, it doesn't look nice. The onus should be on the owners to look after it all the time. It should be fenced off, it should be protected. So I don't think that should be the case. I don't think there's a problem with the golf simulator. It's just a case that it's too big where it is, and it's enclosed, and we cannot ignore the Greenbelt. Already lots of the Greenbelt is taken. So my main objection to this, although I think it's a wonderful idea and it'd be really good, is that actually a statutory body is very dangerous if we ignore them. If everybody says, well, they're immovable, they're being intransigent, that's a very dangerous thing, because that, if you can't comply with somebody or somebody doesn't comply with that, that's an easy reason to say, oh, well, they just don't listen. So I think that's very dangerous for us to do, and I concur with the officers of this one. Thank you.
Councillor Upton.
I'm really, really torn on this one. There's some tremendously good things about it. And for me, the fact that the college have very, very generously said that they'll have an extra sort of footpath going down the side there, which will relieve the pressure on that shared use cycle, heavily used cycle and foot pedestrian path along the eastern edge is really, really good. And the fact that they're going to be open access to the public is really, really good. But at the same time, there's an awful lot of things that they haven't done. And as Councillor Raymond says, you know, ignoring the Environment Agency, not giving us the appropriate field evaluation. It would be, yes, that disturbs me. And also the trying to get out of keeping the carbon emissions of the Padel Court down to our normal requirement of 40% reduction compared with the 2013 building regulations. I mean, I have no idea. Is it impossible to build a Padel Court that could satisfy that? Because if we do pass this, then I would want that condition to be in there, that they do get a 40% reduction. And so they'll then have to see what they can do about making, I presume it can't be technically impossible to do that. So I say I'm very, very torn. I haven't quite decided, made up my mind yet, which way I'm going to go.
Councillor Henwood.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm really torn apart with this application. I see it being of benefit to the locality and actually drawing people to the Greenbelt to be enjoyed as well. I have reservations about the Environment Agency and their stance on that project, which is disappointing. But I accept that it is a statutory body and their advice is as it stands. So although I would like to support this application, in this instance, I will be abstaining. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think my feeling about this is very much, we seem to have a incomplete proposal. And I would like advice from officers whether, in fact, if we refuse the officer's report proposal to refuse it, in other words, we accept it, it seems to me there's an awful lot of stuff missing from it that we can't judge the application on. And I'm not sure what conditions the officers could then be expected to impose without it having to come back to committee. So perhaps I could ask either Ross or Andrew to comment on that.
It's difficult to advise on likely conditions that can deal with all of the issues or mitigate all of the issues that we've raised in the report. Clearly, there's a range of issues with regards to flood risk, whichever happens, the committee, if you are minded to go against what the Environment Agency, who are the statutory consultee for flood risk, who've given quite clear technical reasons why they've objected to the application. Now, you might not agree with some of those, but the technical, and we're not technical experts, are we? And neither is the committee meant to be. But it's very difficult to understand what suite of conditions they may wish to add or that would try to mitigate the harm from the development that they've identified. So that's the first concern I would have. And certainly it'd be very difficult in this committee to go through a suite of conditions that could mitigate that harm. What I would say is that you've got quite a detailed report here that sets out a number of concerns with the application. You know, dealing with some quite significant planning policies and constraints, things like the Greenbelt. Whether you've got a view on whether this impacts on the openness, then that's a matter for the committee. But ultimately, you know, there are very clear guidance in the NPPF which talks about how you assess impact of inappropriate development in the Greenbelt, talks about very special circumstances. So you need to be really clear about how you're weighting the information in here to deal with that very special circumstances. So difficult to see what conditions we can just quickly come up with to try to mitigate that. Likewise, with the Environment Agency's technical objection, again, as I said, very difficult for us to come up with specific conditions that will overcome their concerns. That's just what I would flag there. Just quickly before I finish, and just to point out, just to clarify the comments that were made earlier about the golf simulator and whether that is a less vulnerable use. I mean, the report obviously sets that out. But don't forget, in these buildings, you have got uses that are coming into these buildings that move away from water compatible uses to less vulnerable uses. It's not just a golf simulator in a existing leisure facility. You've got community buildings, you've got cafes, etc., that all come under different classes. So think of the application as a whole. Nobody's saying that the college can't go ahead and develop to develop this site further. There must be a solution, but on the basis of what's been presented so far, we've highlighted some significant technical defects with the application, and we've got statutory objectors objecting to the application. So I think just to bear that in mind, and on that basis, it's really hard for us to come up with a suite of conditions for you at the moment off the hoof.
Thank you, Andrew.
Just to add, as Andrew said, with the Environment Agency objection being a statutory consultee, you have to give that objection significant weight, unless there's compelling reasons to go against that advice. Also, obviously, if you're minded to go against the officer's recommendation, that needs to be for sound planning reasons. So I think what I'd want to see, if there was a proposal to grant this, is for each of the reasons for refusal to be gone through, and for members to explain why they disagree with those reasons for refusal.
Thank you. Councillor Ottino.
I think clearly we haven't got the ability to come out of those conditions, and we haven't got the ability to make those arguments. And I think it actually comes back to the applicant, that they should have engaged with the City Council planning officers and with the Environment Agency beforehand, and we wouldn't be in this problem. So I know they said this is it. Obviously, if this isn't it, they need to go away, I think, come back with, have those discussions and come back with a proposal that is satisfactory to those professionals. We do see lots of good things about this, and in many ways we'd like to see it going ahead, but we haven't got the ability to condition it. We haven't got the ability to make those technical arguments. So I think we do have to refuse it, and they need to go away. I see they can come back with a different application that satisfies many of those things, and which will make it easier for us to approve it, because there's lots we do like about it.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to comment? If not, we will move to, sorry, Councillor Raymer, did you want to speak? We move to, if somebody would like to propose the motion to accept the officer's report. Councillor
I think that Simon proposed it, and then I'll second it. I think.
Okay. Go ahead. So that we have before us a motion to accept the officer's report, i.e. to refuse the application. So could I ask all those in favour of the motion to raise their hand? Okay, that's 4. So, Councillor Henwood, you abstained.
We move on to. Right, we're now on item 5, which is 15 Halliday Hill, and I'm going to hand over to Nia to present.
Okay, so this is an application seeking planning permission for the subdivision of the existing dwelling to create 2 one-bed flats with associated alterations to fenestration, provision of private amenity space and bin and bicycle storage. So the site, it comprises of a semi-detached 2-storey dwelling located on the southwestern side of Halliday Hill. This is a view of the front of the property. And this is another view of the front, and you can see that there's an existing single-storey side projection as well as a paved driveway. This is a view from the side of the property showing the outdoor space at the site, the existing single-storey side projections to the left with the neighbouring property to the right. This is another view of the rear garden. There is also an existing single-storey rear extension, which is shown on the left with the rear boundary just in front. And this is a photo taken from the side of the property looking out onto Halliday Hill. This is another view from the front showing the ground level differences between the application site and the neighbour to the right. And this is the last photo showing the front again and the relationship between the 2 properties with the boundary treatments. So these are the existing floor plans showing the ground floor on the left and the first floor on the right. These are the existing elevations where you can see the existing single-storey side and rear projections. So these are the proposed floor plans. So on the left, on the ground floor, we've got a 1-bed flat proposed with private amenity space accessed from the rear. And the second flat, which would be located on the first floor, would be accessed at a new secondary door proposed within the front of the existing side projection, and this flat has private amenity space to the side. These are the proposed elevations, and in red are the fenestration changes, and there's a new fence shown to the side as well. This is the proposed block plan. The bin and bicycle storage is proposed at the front on the driveway. And in summary, the proposed development is acceptable in principle, providing additional dwelling, and both the dwellings would meet internal and outdoor space requirements, with the design not causing any detrimental harm upon the character and appearance of the dwelling itself, nor the street scene of Halliday Hill. The proposals would not cause any detrimental impacts upon the amenity of any neighbouring dwellings, and nor would the proposals cause any impacts in regards to highway safety, vehicle and bicycle parking, bin storage, drainage, ecology, nor land quality. So as such, the proposals are considered to comply with the relevant policies of the Oxford Local Plan and the NPPF.
Thank you. Questions for Nia? Go into no questions. Discussions. Got no. Yeah. Okay.
Can I propose that we accept the officer's recommendation on this? It seems entirely uncontroversial.
Yeah. Okay.
Seconded. Yeah.
Okay. So we've got a proposal on the table to accept the officer's recommendation. That is seconded. Can I see all those in favour with, to accept that with all the attached conditions? I think that's unanimous. Great, thank you. We now move on to item 6, which is 11 Glevelands. Oh, sorry, yes. Yeah, let's have a brief pause while AJS comes back. Can we start agenda item 6 and Mary Rowe, you're presenting this, yeah.
This is a householder application that's been called into committee, seeks permission for demolition of the existing detached garage and existing rear extension and erection of a 2-storey side extension and part single, part 2-storey rear extension. Since the application was originally submitted, amended plans have been received that remove the rear dormer roof extension and front roof light that were proposed in association with a loft conversion. This is the application site outlined in red. It's a 2-storey dwelling located on the southwest side of Gleeblands, close to the junction with Coverley Road. The property was originally semi-detached. However, the other half of the semi-detached pair, 37 Coverley Road, has extended with a 2-storey side extension, and this is now numbered as a separate dwelling. As such, the application is now part of a short terrace of 3. This is the existing dwelling, which has a hip roof, finished in pebble dash render with a tiled roof. This shows the detached garage to the side, adjacent to 9 Gleeblands. This is the rear elevation and the rear garden. These are the existing floor plans. The ground floor on the left, first floor in the middle. These are the proposed floor plans showing the extent of the proposals and relationship with the boundary of the site. These are the existing elevations. And these are the proposed elevations. So the side extension set down and set back from the host and would have hip roof form to match the existing 2-storey rear extension, would be set down again from the original dwelling, set in from the side extension, and would step down to single-storey adjoining the boundary with the neighbour. The extensions will be finished in matching materials and therefore form an appropriate visual relationship with the host dwelling. The proposals are considered to reflect the design of and be subservient to the host dwelling. The 2-storey side extension will be clearly visible from the street scene and would reduce the openness which is currently available between the site and 9 Gleeblands to the south side. However, consideration has been given to other corner plot dwellings in the area which have similar orientations to the road and placement within their plots. And note that many properties have extended to the side in a similar manner, including the attached dwelling 37 Coverley Road. And therefore, the proposal is not considered to be out of keeping with the character and appearance or wider context of the area and would be in accordance with development plan policies. The 45-25 guidelines have been applied in relation to neighbouring amenity, and the proposed extension would not contravene this code of practice, and therefore it's considered the proposed extensions would not result in loss of light to neighbours. Due to the angled corner plot of the dwelling and siting of the proposed extensions within the plot, the lack of habitable room windows on the side of 9 Gleeblands and the reduction in scale of the proposals to single-storey adjoining the boundary with 37 Coverley Road, it's considered that the proposed extension wouldn't be overbearing or result in loss of outlook to neighbouring dwellings. Windows are proposed on the side elevation of the property, but due to the angled orientation of the application dwelling, they'd face out towards the street rather than directly towards the neighbouring property itself. And there are no habitable room windows on the side elevation of number 9. New windows are proposed front and rear, but these openings are not considered to introduce any new views compared to the existing situation and would not be unusual in a residential setting. It is therefore considered that proposal would not result in any detrimental privacy impacts or overlooking and would be in accordance with local plan policies. In terms of the Lythe Valley SSSI, a drainage strategy, including sustainable drainage and a SUDS maintenance plan have been submitted during the process of the application. Following receipt of the drainage information, the council's flooding officer is satisfied that proposals would not adversely impact hydrology of the Lye Valley SSI, and the requirements for the management of surface water can be met through the management plan. Natural England have raised no objection, subject to appropriate SUDS mitigation being secured by condition. And in relation to ecology, a bat survey was submitted with the application, and the existing building was assessed to be of negligible suitability for roosting bats. So no further surveys were required. In summary, the application is recommended for approval, subject to conditions listed at the end of the committee report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we have two speakers, we have three speakers against, and we have got one in favour of the application. So can the three people who want to speak against the application come forward? You have 5 minutes to speak, and that's between the three of you. So I'm hoping that you've discussed this and timed it in advance. Okay, excellent. Okay. Thank you. So when you're ready, we'll start the timer.
Cool, thank you. My name is James Henton. I'm a resident next door to the property of 11 Clevelands. We feel that this is a huge overdevelopment of the site for a number of reasons. We do believe that this double-storey extension will affect our light that comes into the back of our property due to the nature of how far the overall property sits in the plot. This sits very far back, so the front garden is huge, but the rear garden is very small. We believe that having 6 people living in this property with such a small rear garden creates a courtyarding effect for 5 properties in total back onto this back garden. So we feel that having this small amount of space for 6 people, let alone 8 bedrooms, which are proposed on the plan, would be unacceptable and not create enough amenities for this. As I mentioned, there are 6 bedrooms listed, but there are 8 bedrooms which are going to be within this proposal. So we feel this is a way for the property developer to get through additional bedrooms without effective planning under the sui generis guidelines. All of these bedrooms will also have ensuite facilities. Those showers will back onto our bedrooms on our adjoining wall. But we feel that even with sufficient noise reduction, this would still cause big disturbance to us as residents based on that property. Also, as these all have en suites, this is an irreversible plan which can never go back to a family home should they want to sell this in the future. I'd like to point out that a 5-bed plan has been submitted and approved without these additional extensions and would be more in keeping with the neighbourhood and the residents. Also, I believe that it's not necessarily about the process you follow, it's how you make your customer feel. As mentioned, I know this can't be taken into account, but we have a 300-person signature petition against this application. And I feel ignoring the community of Lye Valley is a big mistake. Talking about the wider community, looking at Clevelands on its own, both number 5 and 8 have already been approved for 8 and 9-bed properties and are currently inhabited by people. This being number 11 and number 17, which is currently under review, given that these were 3-bed properties, in 150 yards, you are changing 12 bedrooms to 32. And I believe that that is completely unacceptable in terms of amenities for the local community, traffic, drainage, and everything else. Now, hand over.
Thank you. I'm Judith Harley, one of the Lye Valley Ward councillors, and I'm here to support the residents. This is too dense a development, too many HMOs in the area. I'm a bit concerned about various aspects of the officer's report, particularly 9.9, 9.13 and 10.45, which indicate that this is a residential extension, despite the fact there's an HMO licence. And condition 7 mentions HMOs, but not residential. So is it residential? Is it HMO? I'm not certain if it's a residential application, why an HMO is going to be allowed, or they'll use the residential for HMO development. So I would like to question that. And also condition 4, which is to remove the permitted developments unless it has prior written consent of the local planning authority. If you are minded to approve this, we would like to request remove permitted developments full stop, not even with any further written approval. So we'd like you to refuse this application because it's not clear whether it's residential HMO or what's going on. There are too many HMOs in the area already. We'd like you to modify the conditions 4 and 7, which conflict in whether it's HMOs. 7 wants to refer to it as an HMO. I will stop at that point and hand you over to my fellow councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, everybody. I'm Ejaz. I'm the other ward councillor. Basically, lots of things have been said, but I'll just talk about planning in planning terms. Lots of the whole estate has is made of a pair of semi-detached houses. That's how the estate is designed. A number of corner plots have got a double-storey extension, but in between that plot and the next plot, there's always a gap of single. So when somebody builds, then the next person can't build to avoid a terraced effect. Although the officer is correct in saying that there's plenty of double stories, there's not 2 together. So on planning terms, I think it's that. It's good to know that the loft conversion has been taken away. However, still, in my opinion, and in opinion of the residents, it's overdevelopment and overmassing of the site. It's not that big a site for that much. It has got planning for C4, and although the people are not happy with the C4,
I think your time's just about up.
Okay, I'm just about the last. They're content with C4, which is up to 6 people, which is fair enough. But this is just it's too big for the site, and we think that in planning terms, it's just too big, and it should be reviewed on that basis.
Thank you. If you could go and sit down, I understand that we've got Mr. Neil Simpson, who's we got him on Zoom. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We can hear you, and you have 5 minutes now to speak.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to give support for this application. I think I should first start with addressing some misconceptions from the previous speaker. The application has been amended. We've taken on board the concerns of locals, and the proposal is no longer for 8 bedrooms. It is 6 bedrooms, which marries up with the existing C4 use. There's been a reduction, which we think has been a result of working with the planning officers to produce something that's much more modest in scale than initially proposed, and which would be more in keeping with the street scene. It's been noted already that the adjacent half of the property, which is so number 37A, Coverley Road, that already has the benefit of an extension. The proposed extension for this application would actually have occupy a smaller footprint and help rebalance that in the street scene, in our view, and in the officer's view as well. The councillor's point as well about this being an application for an HMO, that's not correct either. Just for clarity, for the avoidance of doubt, there was a previous application which allowed the change of use. That was application 25000814, which was approved, which gives grants to C4 use, which is given. So that's not that shouldn't be a consideration of the members tonight. If they want further guidance on that, I'm the expertise is in the room. I would urge members to secure their own guidance for that to their satisfaction. We've worked closely as well with the planners and Natural England to ensure that this proposal will not be harming the Lye Valley. All surface water will be secured within the site to ensure nothing gets into the aquifers with any potential impacts on the SSSI. We've done the requisite bat survey as well, which to the satisfaction of the officers, and I commend the application. I strongly urge the members to to consider carefully what the officers report and the recommendation. And I'm here to answer any questions from the members themselves who may have further concerns. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Tino, Kerr and Fairweather.
Yeah, I didn't really understand the floor plans. There seem to be 5 small flats on the first floor and 1 on the ground floor, and then lots of other space. What is that other space? And then could you clarify, the 9.9 paragraph about what you say?
And I think your microphone's gone off.
Right,
I
so
think so.
clarify 9.9. Is there a special permission needed for a larger HMO? And does this not fall onto a larger HMO? And what do you discount these spaces that don't seem to have any use?
Do you want to come back on that one, Mary?
The current application is for a residential extension. There was a previous extension for a small HMO, but this current application hasn't been implemented yet. So this current application is for a residential extension. The other areas in the house are extended as existing: living room, kitchen.
Chair, just to come in. So I think you're talking about that proposed floor plan there, and that there's bedrooms shown on the first floor and then 1 on the ground floor, and then there's space that's not demarcated. Is that the concern? They don't have to specify what's actually going in those rooms, but one would expect that they're not bedrooms, so it's like living room, kitchen, diner. I would have thought the applicants online, isn't it? You can ask that question, see if you see fit. The point I think we're trying to make is that this is a C3 dwelling house at the current time. It has, although it's got planning permission for a HMO has not been implemented as yet. Therefore, we're looking at the extension itself here and not the use of the property. If the property latterly then wants to be used as a C4 HMO, the applicant will need to apply for that change of use.
Do you want to come back, Simon?
I don't understand that. Does that mean nobody will be able to live in it?
No, that doesn't mean nobody able to live in it. At the moment, if they extend the property, if this planning permission gets granted and they build this extension, they will have to use it as a C3 dwelling house. That means used by a family that could have 6 bedrooms with en suites. They applied for planning permission for a HMO and that's been approved, but as far as I'm aware, and I think the applicants just confirmed it online to say it's not been implemented as a HMO. So if they get planning permission here, they will be able to build this extension and a family will be able to live in it as a C3 dwelling house. If it needs to then be used as a HMO, they will need to apply for planning permission for a C4 HMO if it's 6 bedrooms, up to 3 to 6 bedrooms, or a large scale HMO if the occupancy goes beyond that. But at the moment, it is a C3 dwelling house. The extension is to extend a C3 dwelling house, and it will need to be used as such. Does that help?
Emily.
Gosh, sorry. Yes. So I had a question about that, which I think you've now clarified. I know that we have an HMO saturation policy. I know that it's 20% because it is in East Oxford. I know that's across. And I know that the only number I can find in Lye Valley is 7% from 2021. This may not be relevant to this, but if it is relevant, am I allowed to ask what the current saturation in Lye Valley is?
And also, I think it's slightly more complicated than that. It's within a certain
Within 100
drawn-
metres, yeah.
Yeah,
100
exactly.
metres,
So
yeah.
rather than saying Lye Valley as a ward or whatever, but
I may not be able to ask this question.
But I will
anyway.
ask officers just to
It's not-
clarify on that.
I haven't worked it out for this
Because it's not an
application, because it's
application
not
for it. Yeah,
for an
understood,
application
understood.
for an
Thank you.
HMO, and I didn't. I haven't worked it out. There are a lot of HMOs in this area, but it's because there's quite a lot of houses, and because we take 100 metres in each direction, often each application can comply with the policy.
But it should have been, since it was given permission previously before the planning permission, presumably that is part of that planning application, so I just need to look at that planning application.
Yeah,
My,
that's right, Chair.
yes,
And-
thank you.
Yeah.
And we have granted planning permission already for the property to be converted into a HMO. So if the appellant, if the
Presumably it's
applicant-
under 20%.
So, yeah, so we
Yeah.
would have assessed it at that time and consider it's below the saturation policy.
Thank you.
We couldn't give you the exact figure.
Understood.
Question.
Yes.
Great. Okay, Lauren.
Looking at the photograph of the existing site, it looks to me as if, I think it was the previous photograph. Looks to me as if I think it's number 9 Gleeblands, the next door house anyway. Has that actually already been extended right up to the boundary, or is it built like that? It's not entirely clear from the photo.
The one on the left-hand side, you
Yes.
mean? Yeah, that's been extended to the boundary.
Right. I did have a question about the HMO thing. Could I just quickly check, is the number of HMOs in a given area a planning issue or a licensing issue?
Is a number of HMOs in a given area a planning issue or a licensing issue?
I don't believe it's a licensing issue, because the license will go with the property, and whether the property, whether the property can be used as a HMO, we'll have to meet a certain set of standards. The number of HMOs in the area is a material planning consideration, because we have a policy controlling that. But that comes from when you're considering an application for a HMO. And the important thing here to remember is, and maybe we can seek clarification, Chair, from the applicant to confirm the property is currently in use as a C3 dwelling house. If at such time as you're looking at the change of use of the property to a HMO, that's when you consider the saturation policy.
Can I address that?
Yes, please. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to clarify that. Yes, it's the property is currently vacant, and it's still got its C3 use. Like I say, C4 use was granted as an option. So we have that planning permission that was granted this year, so that's valid for 3 years. Again, if we were to come, if we wanted to come and have 8 rooms, that would require a completely different license. That would be a planning permission. That would be sui generis. So that would require another planning application, and the members and the residents would have the opportunity to comment on that. But that is not what's on in front of you today, and that's not what we have permission for.
Just to clarify, just to point, say the applicants just confirmed the property's in use as a C3 dwelling house. Therefore, you're considering this application on the basis that it's a residential development and it's a householder application for an extension to an existing dwelling house. So that's what you're considering today. The applicant's not correct in the fact that he has got permission for a C4 change of use of the property, as you see on that screen, to a C4 HMO, and he could therefore do that under that planning permission. What he can't do is do that under that planning permission, extend it and use the overall property as a C4 HMO. He would need to reapply for the change of use of the resultant building to a C4 HMO if it was going to be 3 to 6 people. If he was going to put 8 units in, he would then also need to reapply for a large scale HMO. Does that clarify and help? So I say it for his benefit that he doesn't inadvertently carry out unauthorised development. In the
Yes,
event
sorry, Chair. That was understood. I misspoke. Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Did you want to come back? No. Okay. David, Councillor Henwood. Are there any other questions before we go into debate? Is everybody clear now about the HMO issue and the fact that that there is no, that with the extension, the house can only be used as a C3 dwelling house. The HMO issue would have to come back and we would deal with that on its merits. Okay? I mean, no, it's just for councillors to take part in this, in this project.
Nobody's saying.
Chair, we don't, as I say, we've had,
Sorry.
no, we can't take questions from the floor.
It's not a question.
No, we can't, or comments at
Or
this stage.
statement.
No.
Chair, just to clarify as well, sorry, there's a correction to be made. I think councillor Harley mentioned it in her address. That condition 7 refers to house in multiple occupation. Just to clarify, that is a typo and it shouldn't refer to a HMO. It should be reworded to first occupation of the dwelling house rather than a HMO. So that's just a typo. Condition 7
sorry.
on page 121 of your agenda. Shouldn't, and condition 8 also has got reference to a HMO. They should be just changed to refer to dwelling house because it's not a HMO. I think it's just a typo.
Okay. Okay, debate. Councillor Orsino.
I don't think I think we're all very concerned about this. We understand the residents' concerns. It sounds like we have to approve it as the application is, but we would need the neighbours and the local councillors to keep a very close eye on it if it doesn't become an HMO without permission, and to let us know if it does.
Yeah, okay, and that would be an issue, a separate issue for planning enforcement, as Councillor Raymond no doubt aware. Other comments? I mean, yes, I take your point, but with any planning application, there's always, you know, arguably a potential for someone to do something which is not in line with the approved plans, but we can't make a decision on that basis. We have to decide on the basis of what we've got in front of us and assuming that the applicant is acting in good faith and will continue to abide by whatever decision we make. Councillor Upton.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're desperately in need of more housing in the city. This could be good for a large family, or if it did in the future become an HMO, lots of young professionals need cheaper housing who can't afford to, you know, a 2-bedroom house of their own. So we do need, and you know, it's a densification of the city, which is something else we need to do to get more houses into the small space that we have. Of course, it's always a worry for neighbours when you've got more people moving in, but if it, you know, I've never ever heard my next door neighbours showering and my house is closer to theirs than those two are on the screen, or will be. So I don't think that the number of showers in the house is going to be an issue. I just know one of the neighbours said that they were worried about that amount of noise. So I know nobody likes change near their house, but I think this, you know, this is the sort of thing that we do need to be doing in the city, densifying our housing. So I'll be supporting it.
Thank you. So we have a proposal to accept the officer's recommendation with the conditions. Emily, did you want to come back with?
I will also second that for similar reasons to Councillor Upton, and because the application before us, you know, it is clear that there are other applications, so this has already been done to other houses in the area, so that's not a very materially good reason to do it. The applicant has, you know, mitigated reasons of impact. A lot of the objections are based on things which are the county council's, you know, purview, such as parking, etc. And therefore, it seems fairly clear to me that we should accept the officer's recommendations in this case. And I'll second Councillor Upton.
Chair, just for clarity, can I just confirm that the application is not seeking the densification of the property, in that it will still be one dwelling house, and it's extending it as one dwelling house. And I appreciate, I guess, what you guys were meaning. I just want that to be, just to make that clear, so anyone doesn't have in their deliberations that we are densifying, i.e. creating more units of accommodation here, but we are making a more efficient use of the site by improving the existing accommodation, which I'm sure that's what you meant, but I thought I'd better just clarify that.
Okay, we have a proposal on the table to accept the officer's recommendation. Can I see all those in favour of that? Okay. And can I see all those against? And all, any abstentions? Okay, so that is now carried. Thank you, and I will hand over. Thank you, everyone. Dealing with those two applications, I will now hand over to Councillor Fairweather. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay. That's. Could we come to order, please? Thank you. Now I've finished playing musical chairs with Mary. Well, let's go on and talk about item 7, which is number 8 Dunstan Road, and the council officer presenting this is Hannah. So if you'd like to start, Hannah.
Thank you. So this is an application for the provision of a cycle storage and its retrospective. So the application site is 8 Dunstan Road, as can be seen by the red line boundary. The site was originally known as Lower Farm, and it's located within the Old Headington Conservation Area. The site lies on the northern side of Dunstan Road. To the south of the site, on the opposite side of the road, is a Grade 2 listed building, which is Manor Farmhouse. The proposal doesn't fall under permitted development due to it being within the curtilage of this listed building. So this is the block plan. Here to the left of the main dwelling, or to the northwest, is where the proposed bike shed is located. To the west of the main dwelling, down here, still within the red line boundary, is a vehicle access gate, and the proposed shed is obviously located behind this gate to the northwest side of the site boundary, and the shed would be accessed via this gate. These are the proposed plans. As you can see, the bike shed would be against the boundary wall, and the bike shed is approximately 1.8 metres in depth and 2.2 metres in width. These are the proposed elevations, and the height is approximately 1.4 metres. This is a photograph of the bike shed. It's made from a timber frame with a concrete base and a green sedum roof, and it contains 2 Sheffield cycle stands with capacity for up to 4 bikes. The main considerations of the proposal were the design and heritage impact and compliance with cycling standards. The structure wouldn't be visible from Dunstan Road nor the listed building unless the access gates were left open. The structure could be easily removed if required, and it's of a very modest design. Therefore, we're of the view that the design is acceptable and that it wouldn't impact the Grade 2 listed heritage asset opposite. Our heritage team have reviewed the proposal and are also in agreement that the proposal would not impact the listed building nor the conservation area. No representations were received from members of the public nor any statutory consultees. Here is another photograph of the bike shed. Whilst it isn't enclosed, it's considered to be sufficiently secure because of the vehicle access gates. The proposal meets the cycling storage standards required by policy. Overall, the proposal would comply with the relevant policies of the local plan and the Headington Neighbourhood Plan, and therefore we recommend the application be approved.
Thank you, Hannah. Any questions from the committee to the officers?
Nothing on the.
Then we'll proceed to any comments anybody would like to make. Councillor Henwood.
It's very sensible.
Seconded.
Councillor Railton?
Yes, I'll just say it is a very jolly looking bike shed. I am worried that the spacing of those two Sheffield stands is not LTM 120 compliant. I'm just going to say that's not 1.2 metres, but I think it's fine.
Yes, that had occurred to me to ask, but as it's private, so we have a proposal to accept the officer's report on the table. Is there a seconder? Yes, thank you, Councillor Kerr. So we can just proceed straight to the vote to accept the officer's report. And I think that's unanimous. Thank you.